NBA season back, baby. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. Feels good to say that. It is Tuesday, October 19th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are here finally. It feels like finally, at least. I feel like we haven't talked basketball in forever. 2-game slate here. It's going to be a fun one. The games should be outstanding. Not necessarily full strength, but close enough. And then we get into a big one tomorrow, but we'll talk about that one tomorrow. Before we do anything, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. That will help us out a ton. Let's start here. Adam, how are you?
I am good. Really excited for NBA to start. Excited to get back home later today and be in a normal place to, do my next show. But just really excited for the season.
I know it's not NBA related, but I got to ask, how was the game last night?
It was a lot of fun. The seats were good. Like Fenway is weird because it's just like the stadium's designed so differently than normal stadiums. The seats were like in the top level, but they're like some of the best seats in the stadium because like it's lower than normal stadiums. And then like the lower level goes really far back, but the higher levels are just basically straight up and down. So You're like just kind of sitting on top of the field. So it was actually like a really good view. It was a really good time. Had a lot of fun.
Were you cheering for the Red Sox?
Yeah, I couldn't help it. Like it was the environment's just so like electric for a playoff game. I couldn't help myself.
And obviously it was an ass beating. So I'm sure that was like really entertaining for the crowd too.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
All righty. I don't have anything else to like fill the time with for generic stuff. Did you watch any football last night, I guess?
No, I didn't. I got a text from my sister in like the 7th or 8th inning of the game. And it said, "What did you think about that call?" And I'm like, it looked like a ball to me. Like I don't really know what you're asking me, but she was referring to like a 4th down call. But yeah, I didn't see anything.
All righty. I do want to hit you guys right out of the gate. One, shout out to our sponsor, Yahoo Sports, for being the presenting sponsor here. We're going to touch on them in a little bit, but I do want to hit on our schedule for the rest of the day since today is the opening of the NBA season, but we still have other sports to cover. Coming up immediately after this, 11 a.m. NFL Strategy Show. It's the first look. Laffy, Ben, and Jordan taking a peek at Week 7 in the NFL. We've got the NHL Strategy Show coming up at 2 with Cliffy and Josh Harris. We've got the Jock Market NBA Show at 3:30 with Adam K and Eric. We've got the MLB Live Before Lock with Terry and Max at 4:30. And then the Deeper Dive is back. Laffy and Adam, 5:30 to 6:30. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good one. They will be breaking down both games once again. Plus, NBA Live Before Lock with Eric and Greg. And I believe they're going for 90 minutes, full hour, plus an extended post-lock show. We got a lot on the docket. We've got a lot of content as well right now. Free content, in fact, PGA rankings. So if you are playing the PGA contest this week, you can hop into that one and check out our rankings for no cost. But now, I think we're here. It's time to talk NBA. First game up on the schedule, 7:30 tip-off. The Brooklyn Nets at the NBA champion, Milwaukee Bucks. The Nets are 1-point dogs, I believe, with a 235 total. We're going to start here in Brooklyn. Just in case you're not aware, if you've been living under a rock for the recent past, Kyrie Irving not going to be with the Brooklyn Nets for this one, not with the team due to his own personal choices. And that is where we will leave it. But that does leave James Harden. That does leave Kevin Durant and a couple new look Nets. LaMarcus Aldridge is back from not dying at the end of last year. It's going to be a fun one. How do we manage James Harden and Kevin Durant? Because the first thing that I started looking at were rates when those two guys were on the floor together last year. And James Harden does not have the usage rate of James Harden when Kevin Durant is on the floor.
Yeah. So I just typed in the wrong search, I think. And so I don't have the right numbers in front of me. But
Fantastic start.
Yeah. I'm going to try and fix it on the fly. But we do have a decent number of games, I think, last year that Kyrie was out and that these two played together. One thing that I do remember from last year is Harden at the beginning had a really, really low usage rate. and then it came up. So I do think that the numbers that you're referring to, like, I don't anticipate those being the actual rates going forward. Like, I think Harden is still, Durant might have a higher usage rate than Harden, but I think Harden is going to have a higher usage rate than he did in those minutes last year.
Yeah, so do I. I gave him somewhere in the neighborhood of 25%. It was super, super, super low when they're both on the floor. It's not that case. He's basically normal James Harden when they're not. I assume there's a little bit of staggering between the two of them. So, somewhere in that 25 to 28% range is going to look good. Durant, on the other hand, I think it's going to be massive, somewhere in the mid 30s if we're talking about it. Right now, we have James Harden projected for 50% ownership on FanDuel, another 58 on DK. Durant on the opposite side, though, 34% owned on FanDuel, 28% on DraftKings. I just like getting to Durant more given those current ownership numbers. Do you have a read for Harden v. Durant?
So they actually only played 3 games together last year without Kyrie. Assuming I searched right. Is that what you have also?
I didn't look.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember how to word things in StatMuse, and apparently I forgot. But
I didn't look for any individual stuff like that. I just took Kyrie off the floor and then started looking at combos of Harden and Durant.
Okay, yeah, but like obviously you can't just do that because they're gonna play without each other too.
Yeah.
But in the 3 games, Harden averaged 1.82 DraftKings points per minute, 34.5% usage rate, 50% assist percentage. Durant in those 3 games, okay. Oh, that's God. I'm rusty with this. Durant in those 3 games, 1.48 DraftKings points per minute, 32.6% usage percentage. So I think, even though the rates may change a bit since, we're only talking about 3 games there, I think, you can pretty safely expect both guys to be north of 30%.
Okay.
Because they're gonna have their minutes staggered. They're both, still gonna dominate touches, one of the two when they're out there. So I think that, seeing that that's what happened last year over those 3 games, I think it's a reasonable expectation today as well.
Who do you prefer?
Harden, just because he's a little bit less expensive.
Okay.
At the projected ownership,
yeah, that changes the game up a little bit.
Yeah, at the projected ownership, I'll take Durant, but
right,
like in a cash format, I think I get the Harden first.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I believe Harden and Giannis were the 2 pay up options that ended up in my optimals when I ran those on the process this morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, everybody. So I think Harden is just going to be a little bit more cost efficient. But if we're talking GPPs, I mean, if James Harden is 58% owned and Durant is 28% owned, this isn't much of a discussion. I have them essentially projected the same. So that makes that decision even easier for me right now.
Yeah, I think they should be projected very similarly.
Then we get into the ridiculousness of the rest of Brooklyn. And I'm going to ask you questions now. I don't think that you have the answers for them. And it's not because you're just wildly unprepared. It's because I don't think that we have the answers here. Nick Claxton, Paul Millsap, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin. Who the hell is going to play center today? How many guys do the Nets run in a rotation? Because I think both of those questions are very important. There was a time where I thought Nick Claxton was going to be the main guy. Now I think he gets the least amount of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's there goes the mic.
Oh, did it fall out of your coffee cup?
Yeah, I smacked it. Yeah, so I mean, like in the last preseason game, you got 24 minutes from Claxton, you got 24 from Aldridge, but that was a game where Griffin didn't play. I assume it's gonna be Griffin and Aldridge, but I don't really know. Like, it probably shouldn't be. Claxton probably should be playing ahead of Aldridge. But
I think Claxton in the regular season, I think Nick Claxton should be the guy that's playing ahead of every single one of these guys. And then you just rotate all these old asses through and let one of them sit every third day.
Right. Yeah. So I don't really know. I mean, it's always tough in situations like this because when you haven't seen it yet, because like you were saying, you know, theoretically you could just save the wear and tear on guys like Griffin and Aldridge. You're going to win the East or, be competing to win the East, have them fresh for the postseason. But then there's also the dynamic of what do Griffin and Aldridge want to do? And, even if Claxton is good and the Nets would like to develop him and all that, you're not going to like piss off Griffin and Aldridge to get him minutes. So there's like a lot of competing factors, I think.
I think the interesting piece here is that on FanDuel currently, and on DraftKings, I guess, we have LaMarcus Aldridge projected for 25 to 30% ownership. Paul Millsap at 18, Nick Claxton unowned, Blake Griffin 12.5 on FanDuel, 5 on DraftKings. I certainly want to get to at least a little bit of Nick Claxton tonight in the massive contest, because that's one of the few places where we don't have enough information and he might just play. And that is really all you need to know and hope for the best to try to be a little bit different. I'm scared of the Aldridge ownership, like 30% on FanDuel. I understand that he's 4,100. And now we have this dual eligibility where you can roster people at power forward and center. I mean, this is the guy that had to shut it down last year for a heart condition, stopped playing, is now back and presumably healthy and ready to go. But like, should we just assume that he should be in a third of our lineups today?
I mean, he is really cheap. On DraftKings, he's 3,900, so he's 100 less than Claxton. He's 1,500 less than Griffin, and he's coming off of the final preseason game. He did play 24 minutes, so from a conditioning standpoint, I think clearly the minutes can be there. I agree with you that Claxton makes sense in large field tournaments, even if you assume he's going to be the third guy here, which I think is my assumption. Just because, a variety of things can go wrong. We can just be incorrect and he plays more than we were expecting. You can get foul trouble, injury, whatever. It's a player that when he's on the floor, he typically produces at a pretty high rate. So I do like him in tournaments, but I do also like Aldridge just because he is really cheap. He's, I think, likely to play, 20 or so minutes. And at that price tag, it makes him a really good value.
That's the real question then. How many guys are in this rotation? Do they go more than 10? Because if they don't, I think one of these big guys just doesn't see the floor. Do we get to Javon Carter, DeAndre Bembry? Like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure who the 10th guy is in this rotation, whether it is just Claxton and they go to a lot of bigs or they go to Bembry. For a while, I thought Javon Carter could be a guy pulling a lot of minutes here just because he fits so well on this team. Not a guy that needs the ball, plays a lot of defense. To me, that he's a perfect fit. Or with no Kyrie, is this just going to be like 20 plus minutes for Patty Mills? Because he's 3,700 on DraftKings and projected for 8% ownership today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see around 20 minutes for Mills. But that's another situation like Mills, Bembry, Carter. There's kind of overlapping skill sets with those guys. I mean, Bembry can handle the ball as well and, defend wings. So my assumption is that Mills gets the most minutes of that trio. It's not a very confident assumption. He is a veteran player that obviously had a lot of success with the Spurs in a similar role coming off of the bench. So I feel sort of confident in Mills, but, it's still, if they just run a different rotation than we're expecting, it's not like it would be surprising at all.
It's the ownership here. And I think ownership numbers are going to fluctuate wildly throughout the day as we get more and more information. If Patty Mills is 3.5% owned on FanDuel and 7.8% on DraftKings, he'll be one of my favorite plays of the day from a GPP perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that. And even looking at their last preseason game, not a whole lot that you can take away to clear things up. Patty Mills played 21 minutes. Javon Carter played 20. Bembry played 19. The one really interesting thing is Bruce Brown only played 11. So, I don't think that he ends up behind those guys in the rotation in the regular season, but, I guess that's possible.
You would think this is a good game for Bruce Brown to be on the floor too, but who knows? He's 4,900 on FanDuel, 3,600 on DraftKings, pulling a crisp 47.5% ownership. Like, that scares me too. Even if I think that it's appropriate, I got him in for 22 minutes. I don't think that the ownership is crazy, but like 48% for Bruce Brown and 8 for Patty Mills. Like, the balance of power in Brooklyn feels all over the place for how much uncertainty there is.
Yeah. And in situations like that, typically you want to be aware, and you already mentioned it. We can have our guesses on what it's going to be, but you kind of have to be aware of what you don't know. And so it is a situation where in those larger field tournaments, making sure to get some shots on whoever the field is not going to out of that group makes some sense. 2 preseason games ago, Bruce Brown got the start. He played 18 minutes there. Javon Carter played 26. Mills played 21. Aldridge didn't play in that game. Neither did Bembry.
It's all tricky, man. It's all tricky. We haven't said anything about Joe Harris. 5,800 for Joe Harris in just the small forward spot on DraftKings is a very tough sell. Now, anybody that's going to play 30 minutes is just in play in GPPs on a 2-game slate. It doesn't matter at all, but he's projected for 8% ownership on DraftKings. That's a tough one at that price. FanDuel, on the other hand, Shooting guard and small forward eligibility, 4,300. You need a very specific day out of Joe Harris, just given the way that he puts fantasy points on the board. It's just sort of all scoring. He's the second highest owned Brooklyn net, 52% owned on FanDuel in comparison to 8% on DraftKings. What a disparity.
Yeah, that's the pretty big difference. And it's another, it brings back, if you have the time and you can, playing on multiple sites is just naturally going to, give you exposure to a lot more players so you can kind of hedge.
So just finishing this out, I don't really have too much else I want to say about Brooklyn. Let's speculate on a starting lineup. Obviously, Harden, Durant, and Harris are 3 of those 5. Who the hell are the other 2?
So one other thing I wanted to mention on Harris, he played 187 minutes last season alongside Harden and Durant without Kyrie, 0.55 DraftKings points per minute with a 12.5% usage rate. So not a whole lot to inspire confidence there, which isn't too surprising. As far as the starting lineup, Harden, Durant, Harris. Yeah. Blake
feels like a firm 4th to me.
Yeah. I think Blake, and then, is it Millsap? That would be kind of big, but
that'd be Durant at the 3, Joe Harris at the 2. Is it Patty Mills?
Yeah, it could be Bruce Brown.
Yeah. Like, it is nuts that the first game of the year, we desperately need this starting lineup to hash out our thought process, because there are 2 spots that I would say are mildly up in the air, 1 fully up in the air, and it can be 5 different guys in that final spot.
Millsap would make some sense with Giannis, though, I think.
Yeah. They no longer have Jeff Green to be the Giannis stopper, which is it's like jumbo shrimp. That wouldn't shock me either. I don't know. Closing lineup, all bets are off. It's just whoever's working out best here.
And they can use Blake too. That's probably actually what they'll do. I think that's what they did last year.
Yeah.
So it's Blake on Giannis, and then whoever chasing Brook Lopez around the 3-point line. It can go so many different ways.
So when you see this same sort of setup for today's slate, is this more appealing to you because of the questionable nature and everything?
It's more appealing to me in terms of DFS and, the ability to potentially make money. It's less appealing to me in the context of doing my job and having to talk and write about it.
Sure. Oh yeah. it's really, writing about this is hard. Talking about it, we can just riff and do whatever. Right. You got to think about writing.
Yeah.
That's the worst. All right. So preferring Harden to Durant, just from a individual comparison standpoint, ownership being involved probably makes Durant look a little bit more interesting as a GPP play. Is there anybody that we haven't talked about that we need to touch on here?
From the Brooklyn side?
Yeah.
We talked about Mills. I guess kind of have to touch on Millsap just because he is that basically same price as Aldridge. The ownership between the 2 right now on DraftKings, you have Aldridge at 24%, Millsap at 18%. So not a big gap there, but certainly one spot where, if they're both coming off of the bench, you could certainly just kind of flip that and play a little bit more Millsap, a little bit less Aldridge.
Yeah, 3,900 for Aldridge on DraftKings, Millsap 3,800. It's the opposite on FanDuel, 4,300 for Millsap, 4,100 for Aldridge. So if you're building pre-lock, I would probably just build for the more expensive guy. If you're a 1 lineup guy, just put Millsap in on FanDuel over Aldridge and make that swap if one of them happens to be starting, or vice versa on DraftKings. Just, you got to be aware of it. But this is breaking down the Brooklyn team and getting all the information. We're not going to know what we really like out of Brooklyn until probably 6:30 tonight.
The even crazier part about this, not only is it the first game of the season and we kind of have no idea at this point, we're talking about 2 really good teams, the 2 best teams in the East. You would think that going into game 1 of the season, when you're going to have this much trouble just saying, what the lineups are going to be, you're talking about some bottom feeder that is just running a bunch of rookies out there or something.
Well, if you thought Brooklyn was difficult to talk about, buckle up. We've got the Bucks, and it doesn't get better here.
They are literally difficult to talk about.
Yes, for more than one reason. Dante DiVincenzo, out. Bobby Portis, out. Rodney Hood, out. Semi Ojeleye, out, which means 4 guys that I think would be part of a starting rotation if everybody was healthy today are not available, which means that we are going to be playing some gentlemen that I am not entirely familiar with, including Sandro Mamukelashvili, who is the flat 3K and 3,500 on FanDuel. I think Thanasis sees the floor today for more minutes than you would generally expect. But we have to start here with my preferred pay-up option of the day, the guy that I want the most of anybody. That would be Giannis Antetokounmpo. 11K on FanDuel, 10K on DraftKings, and to me, the best play on the slate.
Yeah, I agree. As much as I like Harden, I like Durant, you have Giannis at 10K, so he's only $700 more expensive than Harden. He should be able to have success here. He pretty much always does in every matchup. So I'm with you. I think that there's certainly alternatives. You have Steph in the later game. You have LeBron and Davis. There's a lot of pay up options, but I'm with you. I do really like Giannis here. I think it's close between him and Harden, since Harden is a little bit less expensive. But I give the slight edge to Giannis, I think.
All right. Well, we're on the same page there. Yeah, look, he's the best per minute fantasy player on the planet. It's generally not even close. I want to have that guy when he's going to play 34 more minutes or more. And assuming he's healthy, I assume he's more healthy right now than he's been in a while, although apparently the knee still giving him some problems from the crazy hyper extension / I thought he was dead, and then he was just back in 2 games injury that he had in the playoffs. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, it's Giannis season. The question then becomes, what do we do with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton? On FanDuel, Holiday is $700 more expensive. He is not pulling the same sort of ownership. Middleton, much more owned. On DraftKings, they're only separated by $200, and they're basically owned the same. I think these guys look the same relative to each other. Salary and ownership play the biggest role, because I have them projected basically on top of each other.
Yeah, and I think you should. Like, you're assuming they're going to play similar minutes. Last year in the games where there were 50 games that Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis were all healthy, Holiday averaged 1.12 DraftKings points per minute. Middleton averaged 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. We know that they both have ceilings. It's not like either one of these guys is, someone with like a capped ceiling. Holiday certainly can post big games. Middleton's certainly capable of going out there and scoring a ton of points. So they are both just really, really similar to me. It's a situation where I'm not really gonna have a preference between the two. I'll gladly just take whichever one is getting less ownership in tournaments. Not to say that I'm not gonna also play the one that's getting more, but another situation kind of like we talked about with Millsap and Aldridge, where I think just sort of flipping what the field's doing is a decent approach.
Absolutely. Mr. Diablo says LaMarcus Aldridge is gonna ball out. Did LaMarcus Aldridge find a time machine during the summer? What are we talking about here? The dude hasn't balled out in a very long time. We'll see if that is going to be new for him this year, but I don't think Milwaukee's the best matchup for him. All right, so we talked about the big 3, and I think the Giannis, Drew, Middleton piece is like the easiest thing to talk about of anything on the slate. We know what these guys are. We just saw them win a title. Every other team's got like question marks or guys missing, or there's Russell Westbrook ruining the plans of everybody else, but we're going to get to that in a bit. I think Brook Lopez looks pretty good at 6K on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings. I'm surprised he's not getting more ownership because they don't have other centers. I don't know who is going to naturally be the backup. Obviously, it would have been Bobby Portis if he was healthy. Is it going to be just Giannis immediately going to center? Is Mamukelashvili going to be the backup center here? This is the tricky part, but I was originally planning to give Brook Lopez like 26 minutes because they're usually pretty tame about him. I got to give him 30 because I don't know who else it's going to be.
Yeah, I think 30 makes sense. I think you probably get the rest of the minutes split between Mamukelashvili and Giannis. Probably like 12 or so going to Mamukelashvili and the rest going to Giannis.
Good work.
So, yeah. So, I mean, that's what I'm expecting. But, you could potentially see more minutes for Lopez, on top of the 30. But I think 30 is a pretty solid projection there.
And I gave Mamukelashvili 12, so that worked out perfectly there.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm happy to get the Lopez. I think he's going a little bit underrepresented, even more so on FanDuel, I guess, at 6K. I think more people should just be there. And then we get into this morass of additional people. Grayson Allen, I expect to start. should close, could close, I guess, doesn't have to close. 3,800 across both sites. Pat Connaughton is in the Pat Connaughton role for this one. 3,900 on FanDuel, but 4,700 on DraftKings does not look appealing. Not sure George Hill gets out onto the floor enough. 3,900 on both sites. Jordan Nwora, on the other hand, flat minimum on FanDuel, flat minimum on DraftKings. I got him in for 16 minutes, but I think it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could play like upwards of 24, depending on how the game's going. He's 25% owned on FanDuel, 35 on DK. I think Jordan Nwora is the guy that I want the most out of anybody on this team that isn't one of the big four.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Just a solid per minute guy. And that's always appealing in tournaments because it's obviously you kind of have to get lucky in the sense of he plays more minutes than his medium projection, but at least when he's on the floor, he's typically going to produce. It's not, like a PJ Tucker type guy where not only do you have to get more minutes, but you need him to actually do non PJ Tucker like things. Nwora typically does produce when he's out there. So I like that at 3K. Grayson Allen at 3,800, I think is reasonable as well.
Yeah, I like Grayson Allen. You really need the minutes there. He's not a very good fantasy performer. 0.77 in my model. That's where I have him for the game. Same situation for Pat Connaughton and George Hill. Not a lot of great fantasy options, but at least everyone there in that Allen, Connaughton, Hill, Nwora group outside of Connaughton on DraftKings, they're all priced sub 4K and just work as rotated value plays. How much Mamukelashvili and Thanasis Antetokounmpo and other Greek guy whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, Georgios Kalaitzakis. Yeah, how much of these guys are you trying to get to? Because the answer, unfortunately, isn't zero.
So, right now, Mamukelashvili, we have projected for like 1% ownership. That might come up. If it doesn't, I'm definitely interested there. Take it for what it's worth. He was one of the best college basketball producers. Like he at least did stuff. He was always like a 9 to 10K guy. So at 3K, getting 12 minutes on a 2-game slate, if he's not going to get any ownership, I'm certainly interested. Especially, we just said that we're interested in Nwora, but 35% ownership going to Nwora compared to 1% from Mamukelashvili, I think makes it a pretty interesting pivot in larger field tournaments. So I'm interested there. I think that would be the first guy that I look to out of that group.
Okay. I'm looking up Mamukelashvili. Was a senior at Seton Hall last year. 52.5% true shooting as a 6'11" senior in college that's some kind of shitty. He played a lot, so that helps. Decent rebounder, actually involved with an assist rate, which is interesting. Not much of a shot blocker. I think he sucks. How the hell is he on the Bucks?
Yeah, I don't know. Second round pick.
Of course, he's on the Bucks because he's a second round pick because they need free players at the end of this. Comparable stats, just not what I was expecting. I expected this dude to be a bit better. 61% true shooting in 2020. So looks like, I don't know if people were just on him, but as a fourth year senior, I think he should be doing a little bit more. I will say that per KenPom, the third most comparable season to Mamukelashvili's senior season, Kyle Kuzma, 2017.
Oh, so he's just going to be a breakout star.
Something like that.
And then be really bad every year after.
I like the idea of getting there, though, at the flat mid 3K. He's certainly worth the dice roll, although based on those stats that I just saw, maybe he's not worth the dice roll.
and also, it's always just nice getting guys that you assume are going to grab rebounds.
Also true. And I think that there's no choice. I think he has to play. It's not even like if he sees the floor, he's flat minimum. They don't have enough.
Have to, but I think he will.
I think they have 11 active bodies. They're certainly going to play 10 of them. I would assume that the 11th guy also sees the floor. In that, seems really weird to play all but one guy for a day. Seems pretty rude, especially when it's just random assholes at the end of the bench. Can you imagine not being able to play on the day where everyone else played but you?
Yeah, the Udonis Haslem.
Well, that one's different.
Yeah,
he gets to play one day a year just to get Dwight Howard tossed.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else in this game. Do you want to add anything else for Milwaukee, or just any holistic thoughts for Brooklyn, Milwaukee in general?
It seems like a really, really good game to target, but also, again, just from a macro standpoint, pay a lot of attention to ownership in the spots where the rotation is in flux. So, on the Brooklyn side, you're talking about the center spot, primarily. On the Milwaukee side, you're talking about the backup center spot, whether it's Mamukelashvili, whether Thanasis gets more minutes than we're expecting. And then also the wing rotation, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Jordan Nwora. I think Connaughton probably the most solidified role, but I'm not even super confident in that. And then, you could, I think, see, like, my guess is Grayson Allen plays more than Nwora, but that could certainly be wrong. So that's just another situation to pay a lot of attention to the ownership there.
Alrighty. Got to talk the sponsor for today's show. That would be Yahoo Fantasy. We have an exclusive limited time offer for you that can get you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You have to be a new person at Yahoo to qualify. Sign up for an account via the link in the description of this video. Make a deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name. We will reach out with a coupon code so that you can get that free month. If you need help for it immediately, please email support@awesemo.com. We can help get you set up. Again, just new Yahoo users. And you could also get a free $10, which can be used in any Yahoo contest. Make sure to use our DFS tools and projections specifically designed for Yahoo to give yourself the best chance at winning big. I also need to touch on our promo code. This is for Awesemo.com. That promo code is Curry. We have a special tip-off deal going right now for Awesemo Plus members. 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum using that promo code Curry. That gives you access to everything. Premium projections, ownership, our incredibly popular boom bust tool, lineup builders, and more. This offer only exists for a week. It's good through Monday, October 25th. Hurry up, lock in this deal to get your Awesemo Plus subscription for only $15. Again, use the promo code Curry, which you can see on the screen. We're moving it on to the late game, the late night hammer, the Golden State Warriors taking on the new look Los Angeles Lakers for the Warriors. No Klay Thompson, no James Wiseman, no cum bucket, Jonathan Kuminga. Yeah, I said it. Whatever. It's a nickname. It's real. It'll be on Basketball Reference if it's not already. Let's talk about Steph Curry. 9,800 on FanDuel, 9,400 on DraftKings, pulling a lot of ownership. 54% on FanDuel with only point guard eligibility, I might add. 47% on DraftKings. I'm not a huge fan of going to Steph. I like LeBron a little bit less, but I'm usually down on Steph in DFS. I'd rather have Harden. I'd rather have Durant. I'd rather have Giannis. Where do you land on Curry?
A lot comes down to ownership there because the ceiling is still massive. Like, he's going to have such a high usage rate. But he's the same price as Harden, and Harden is typically just a better per minute fantasy producer. You do have a little bit of an ownership gap, though. 58% going to Harden on DraftKings, 47% going to Curry. So given that, I obviously still like Curry quite a bit. He gives you a massive ceiling. So still someone that I expect to have a lot of in my lineups. But I do think that he, from like a cash standpoint, he does project a little bit behind, the Giannis and Harden spots.
Friend of the program, by the way, 570 people in here. Let's hit that thumbs up. It's the first day of the NBA season. We want to see as many as we can. If you haven't hit it yet and you're enjoying the content today, please hit that thumbs up. Friend of the program, Dave Lochran in chat. I'm about 10 minutes into the show, and my God, what an unmitigated, disastrous start for Adam.
Why? Oh, is
microphone pulling random shit up. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. It's good. Whoa, Josh Engleman did not butcher all of the Greek names. First of all, there's only 2 Greek names. It's Antetokounmpo and whoever the other guy is that I didn't project. Mamukelashvili is not Greek, and I'm pretty sure I nailed that. Neither here nor there. All right, we got to talk about the most popular player on this slate, I believe. That would be $4,900 on FanDuel, $4,800 on DraftKings. That's Jordan Poole. He's pulling like 70% ownership right now across both sites. I like Jordan Poole a lot today. I think he's going to play quite a bit. Certainly could close. Might deserve more minutes than I'm giving him. Those 2 numbers feel like oddly aggressive ownership numbers for right now.
Makes sense to me. He's cheap. I mean, he's 4,800. He probably plays around 30 minutes. So
that's the difference right there. You think he plays 30?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay.
He's a good fantasy producer. Last year, 0.98 DraftKings points per minute overall. trying to look now to see what he did in the games with Steph Curry, but I assume he's going to run the second unit as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think Poole's probably the best value play.
Well, I don't think that he's the best value play on FanDuel. I do think he's the best value play on DraftKings. I'm certainly getting to him. I was surprised to see it be 65 to 70%. That felt a little high to me.
Points, 43 games last year with Steph Curry active, 0.98 DraftKings points per minute with a 24.7% usage rate for Poole.
I'd love to know the gap or the separation between how many minutes he played with him and without him then in comparison to now, because I would assume he's going to play a lot more minutes with Curry now than he did before.
I seriously could he's going to play more minutes per game.
Yeah,
basically.
And if he's a starter, he's going to be playing alongside of Curry significantly more often. I do think that he's going to have some creation on the second unit and stuff, but
yeah, because I mean, he only averaged 16.8 minutes per game in those games last year. So okay. Yeah, like you're saying, most of those minutes probably were without Curry on the floor. Overall, last year with Curry on the floor, Poole, I'm pulling up now. Poole played 221 minutes, 0.79 DraftKings points per minute, 17.5% usage rate.
Okay. Again, and I don't think that all of these things are all that important, but it does make me not necessarily want to have 70% of Jordan Poole, although he's probably the first guy you're putting into most cash lineups.
Yeah, I would think that is true. There it is. In their last preseason game, Poole started, played 24 minutes, got up 15 shots.
Did Curry start?
Yeah, Curry took 23 shots.
Jesus.
Wiggins only took 9.
Well, that'll be interesting. At least he took one before this season started, however. Gave me that one. Let's talk about the guy that I expect to play the most amount of minutes at center for the Warriors this year, and it's not Kevon Looney, although he does look interesting today. Draymond Green is $7K on FanDuel, $6,800 on DraftKings. I will happily have some Draymond Green today. I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah, I don't really see why not. I mean, he's always nice from a fantasy standpoint just because he contributes in so many ways. I think the price tag is about where it should be at 6,800, but you're always going to get him, flirting with that 10-10-10 triple-double.
All right, so I assume somebody mentioned Patty Mills here, and this is why we're getting this message. Travis Duarte said, when was the last time Patty put up 30 LOL? Please don't be looking at anything that anybody has ever done in previous years like that. Patty Mills
especially
is now,
when they played for the Spurs.
Right. This is not, I bet he puts up 30 a lot when he's playing for Australia. We can't that's whatever he did for San Antonio is irrelevant for this.
Also, I doubt he
exercise.
puts up 30 tonight. We're not saying that, but
it's like a 5 to 10% chance at best. But yeah, who cares at all if he's ever done it? None of that matters. The only thing that matters is today and his price. I'm very high on the Warriors this year, just given how good Curry and Draymond were when they were on the floor together last year with Wiseman off. They were like plus 15 per 100 possessions or something crazy. So I'm going to happily get to Draymond. I think at least on FanDuel at 7,200, probably because of the price. I think Andrew Wiggins is going a little underrepresented. Shooting guard, small forward, eligible, only 29% owned. He's 6,200 on DraftKings. I actually really like that price tag. I think Wiggins looks like one of the better options on DK today.
I'm kind of scared of Wiggins here.
Okay.
I think the salary is fine at 6,200. I just think you could potentially see him end up being the third scoring option when the starters are out there. Poole is not afraid to shoot. I think you could see him kind of taking shots away from Wiggins. Curry clearly is going to. What does that look?
Well, I mean, people have not had a very good time trying to take shots away from Andrew Wiggins in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like last year he had a 20% usage rate when he played alongside Curry. It was 21% in the 87 minutes he played alongside Curry and Poole. I think Wiggins is fine. He doesn't do anything except score, and he's not going to be the primary scorer here. 0.92 DraftKings points per minute in 1,569 minutes alongside Steph last season.
I'm going to end up having too much Wiggins, but I usually do. So there's also that. We got to talk about the guy that I like the most today on FanDuel. Well, no. Otto Porter, 4,400 on FanDuel, small forward, power forward eligibility. I know just the apple of your eye for previous Wizards seasons, but when Otto Porter is able to be on the floor, he's a guy that I want to have and get to. And I think he's going to get a lot of open looks given this Golden State offense. And I love the price tag. On DraftKings, where he's 5,300, it's a little bit tougher of a sell. But at 4,400, I think he's one of the better values on FanDuel today.
Yeah, I think 4,400 makes a lot of sense. Assuming he's going to play, 20 to 22 minutes, give or take?
I gave him 24, actually. Well, let's talk it through. Who do we think is the closing five for the Warriors? Because I think that's what tips it off. Green, Curry, Wiggins for sure. Poole, assuming who's fifth?
Either Porter or Belly.
So, I gave Bjelica 12 minutes. Does Iguodala play?
Yeah, I'll say it could be Iggy, I guess.
Does I see Moses Moody in places. Do the Warriors play more than 10 guys? They do a lot.
Yeah, they ran deep rotations typically last year.
I'm puzzled with what to do with the rest of the Warriors and who their closing lineup is. I mean, sucks.
I'm confident in the four, Green, Wiggins, Curry, and Poole. Then I think it's probably just to some extent a hot hand, or what they need at that specific time between Porter, Lee, Bjelica, Iggy. It could be any of those guys.
I am mildly confident in Poole, but I don't think that he's necessary depending on how this game is going.
I just don't know who they would really want to play over him.
Iggy and somebody, if you're trying to go defense type shit.
Yeah.
There's a path there. If their offense is working and the Lakers defense might be a little bit worse having Russell Westbrook on the other side of the floor, but if the offense is cooking, Poole might be not as interesting. I think he's going to be out there too. I think he is fourth. We haven't even mentioned Juan Toscano-Anderson, who we don't have projected for any ownership. I assume that he's a full part of this rotation. I gave Juan Toscano-Anderson more minutes than Bjelica. Do you think that's incorrect?
Yes.
Interesting. We're talking about a Bjelica that couldn't play for the Heat last year. Got cut from other teams. Should we assume that he's just in now?
They're using him completely differently based on preseason and comments that they've made. He was you're using him as a playmaker.
Which he should be. I mean, this is the guy that won a Eurobasket MVP back in the day.
Did you see the Draymond interview about Bjelica?
No.
Oh, they asked him about Bjelica, during a practice or whatever, and he was just or he might have even brought him up on his own. He was like, "Yeah, Bjelica is doing things that I had no fucking clue he could do. I did not know this guy could handle the ball and make plays." I think they're just using him differently. I think that they want him to have a role. I mean, for whatever it's worth, in their final preseason game, he played 21 minutes off the bench. That was tied with Lee for the most minutes off the bench. Iggy played 20. Porter played 18. But in that game, Toscano-Anderson played 6. If you're at least assuming that it's directionally accurate rotation wise, I think that it would point to Bjelica being ahead of Toscano-Anderson.
Okay, I'm going to make that change then. It wasn't something that I had in here now, but this is what we need. We just need discussions and information for this.
He also took the third most shots in that game.
Good. Does Moses Moody play?
I don't know.
He's in everywhere I see.
Right, he played 18 minutes in that game. I think it's reasonable to think he at least gets off the bench here.
Somebody's got to not play then. Is it Damian Lee? Is it Iggy? Is it Juan Toscano-Anderson? We're running out of we're running out of places to put these people now. And I think that those are really interesting conversations. Moody's clearly the guy that you can get rid of the easiest. He's the rookie. If you want to put him on ice because you're the Golden State Warriors, you can do that. Nobody's going to say a word to you. It seems like Iggy is the easiest guy to not play on any particular day, but I assume he wants to.
I mean, they can also just run 11 guys, right?
They can. And that would be even worse.
Well, I mean, it depends how, if it's 11 and Toscano-Anderson and Moody each play 6 minutes, then who really cares? If it's 11 and they all play 10 plus, then it's a problem.
Yeah. I think that by the time we get to lock, I will have an 11-man Warriors rotation.
I think I will too, because it's just going to be a situation where I at least use an 11th guy to soak up some minutes, because I don't want to just assign a bunch of minutes to, pick a guy off the bench. But I do think that It's possible they run 10. It's possible they run 11, but I think that from like a value standpoint, I like Bielitsa in tournaments. He's only getting 13% ownership. Damian Lee at 3,700, certainly not a high floor, but only getting 2% ownership. This is just another situation, kind of like we talked about with the wing rotation with the Bucks, kind of like we talked about with the center rotation with the Nets. You have a pretty good idea of 3 to 4 guys in the closing lineup, but it could really just be who's playing the best out of Porter, Bielitsa, Lee, Iggy. And as a result, the ownership's not really going to be there to large extents on these guys because their median projection is not going to be that great.
All right, well, we have one more team yet, but I think the Lakers will be, well, they won't be a little bit easier. I'll save this question for the end. Anything else that we need to touch on for Golden State right now? Do we want to touch on Looney, I guess? 3,900 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. I think he plays like 18 to 22 minutes and not a minute more, and it could go well.
Somebody said Kerr has never played 11 guys. He was running a 12-man rotation for like half of last season.
Yeah, that's just.
So yes, I guess technically he didn't play 11 guys.
Yeah, I mean, he was constantly just playing. Everybody was getting like 8 to 12 minutes for a stretch that wasn't a legitimate guy. So that's very untrue. Where did that get said? I like yelling at those people. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't hear your question though, because I was reading that.
Final thoughts on Looney. He's the only guy we didn't touch on yet.
Probably plays 20 or so minutes. He's 4,100. He's not a great fantasy producer. In his minutes last year with Curry on and Weissman off, 798 minutes, 0.74 DraftKings points per minute. Ownership wise, he's getting like 13%. So yeah, I can see getting 10 to 15% of him. He's just not someone that I'm going to have a really strong take on either way, because I don't think it's likely he plays a lot more minutes, and I don't think that like it's close to impossible for him to be in the closing lineup. Like I guess he could be, but like I guess he's another guy you could add to the list. Like maybe he is as the 5th guy, but I think it's pretty unlikely. I think they probably go with a wing and use Draymond. So I think 20 minutes is a pretty good projection, but it's just hard to see how he gets more.
I think this JG gentleman might be a guy you could ask for some head-to-heads, but I don't get the sense they're going to be where you want them to be. He ran an 8-man rotation for the last 6 weeks of the season. I wonder if there were things that happened during the season and something they were playing for that caused them to concentrate their rotation when it mattered most. I can't put my finger on it. I think that might have been happening. I don't know. Could be tricky. Anything else for Golden State?
No.
We are closing it out with the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm going to be very honest with you here. I don't know how to project the 3 guys at the top of the heap. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. I shouldn't include Russell Westbrook in this discussion, but it is fantasy, and he is good at that. He's just bad at actual basketball. I cannot wait to see how this ends up shaking out. But we've got LeBron James at 18% ownership on FanDuel, 22 on DK. We've got Russ, 28 and 32. We've got AD, 23 and 21. The floor is yours, just wide open. What do we want to do with these Lakers, with the Lakers big 3, and who the hell actually takes shots?
So from a tournament standpoint, I kind of just want to go with the lowest owned ones because I don't know how this is going to look. I don't think it's going to be pretty, at least at the beginning of the season. This just strikes me as a spot where by the end of the year, they figure out how to play together. Like they're still good players. They'll figure it out. But at the beginning of the year, I think this could just kind of be a shit show with like, they don't fit well together. Obviously LeBron wants the ball in his hands. Westbrook has to have the ball in his hands. Davis should have the ball, so it's not going to be pretty out of the gate, I don't think. I just kind of think there's going to be a learning curve there, but they're also all inexpensive. This would be a spot where I'd really want to stay away from it if you were getting normal LeBron price or normal Anthony Davis price, but you've kind of preemptively gotten LeBron down to 9K, Davis down to 8,800, Westbrook at 8,600. Any given one of these guys can still go out and have a massive game. I think it's going to be difficult to predict game by game who does the best. I think it's going to be a situation over the course of the year where I typically in tournaments just want to roster the lowest owned of the trio and hope that it happens to be the day Westbrook wants a triple double, or it happens to be the day that Davis, demands the ball. But the way it looks right now, you have Westbrook projected for the most ownership at 32%, LeBron at 22%, and then Davis at 21. I think I would rather be going to LeBron and Davis just because, for one, they're both multi-position eligible on DraftKings, whereas Westbrook is not. So the opportunity cost is naturally going to be a little bit lower. It's just going to be a little bit easier to get them into lineups. And then also, I mean, there's just no. Could Westbrook end up being the best fantasy producer of the group? Absolutely. I mean, he's a fantasy monster all the time. But could you also just see, in the fourth quarter of the game, LeBron become the point guard and Westbrook just be relegated to, I don't even know what he would be doing.
Like the bench would be the place they should put him, but they won't.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't know, LeBron runs point and Westbrook just like posts up whoever's guarding him. I mean, I don't know what they can't just leave him at the 3-point line. But either way, I think that there's just clearly a very high ceiling for LeBron, very high ceiling for Davis as well.
By the way, I didn't mention it out of the gate. No Wayne Ellington, Trevor Ariza, or Talen Horton-Tucker. Kendrick Nunn is questionable. Malik Monk is probable. All of that is probable to give me a heart attack as we're getting up towards the 7:00 lock or 7:30 lock, because this matters a ton. Like, Kendrick Nunn is projected for minimal ownership. If he plays, I think he has to play a decent amount and becomes one of my favorite plays at 4,400/4,300. I think Kent Bazemore is close to a lock to playing big minutes today. He's at 22% ownership on FanDuel. He's 3,600 on DraftKings, which makes him an incredible value. Unfortunately for the Lakers, I think Carmelo Anthony's going to need to be out there for 20 plus minutes, which certainly not going to help the team defense out. I don't know who starts at center. Is it DeAndre Jordan? Is it Dwight Howard? I think it could go either way. Based on ownership, it seems like we're saying that it's Dwight Howard. He's projected for 30.5% ownership. DeAndre Jordan is the same price on FanDuel, projected for 2.7%. So right out of the gate, I like DeAndre Jordan in GPPs, maybe. We've got Rondo on this team, who I have to assume can only play backup point guard minutes. If they play Russell Westbrook and Rajon Rondo next to each other at any point in time, I think the world might end. What are we doing with the rest of this Lakers team? Because I don't have a feel for it.
Yeah, so it's, going through their last couple of preseason games, I think that final starting spot's pretty wide open. You had DeAndre Jordan started the last game with Howard off the bench. The game before that, Jordan was a DNP. You had Carmelo in the starting lineup. I think there's a good chance that it could be Carmelo, it could be Jordan, it could be Howard. It's looking at the pricing, Howard is more expensive than Jordan, so I would rather just go to Jordan. I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference who starts. Like, you're probably getting like 12 to 15 minutes from both guys regardless. We know Anthony Davis is going to play a lot of center this year as well. He's finally said that he's actually open to doing that and wants to do that, so that's good. So I'm with you. Rondo, I think, is a pretty tough sell just because he can't be out there with Westbrook, I wouldn't think. Yeah. So it just kind of makes it difficult to see where his upside for minutes comes from. So yeah, taking some shots on DeAndre Jordan if you're playing a lot of lineups is fine. 3,900 for Melo, certainly in that LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap category. But obviously the priorities here are Westbrook, James, and Davis.
If none is in, how do you feel? 4,400 on FanDuel, 4,300 on DK. The question is, can he get his own shot at any point? I
think it's really tough to look to basically a scoring dependent guy on this team that's not named Westbrook, James, or Davis. Bazemore at 3,600 would make more sense to me.
Yeah, just I like Bazemore. That 3,600 price is great. How does he not have more than one eligibility?
Yeah, no idea. The guy plays every position, but he's the kind of guy that on a team like the Lakers, I'm just going to feel better about going to in fantasy because he's not a high usage guy, which, it makes it less likely he ever gets you, like 50 fantasy points or something, but he'll get some steals, he'll get some rebounds, he'll get some assists. He's not going to dominate any one category, but he contributes enough across the board, which is really what you need on this team because Davis is going to dominate rebounds. Westbrook's going to dominate rebounds. LeBron's going to dominate rebounds. So you don't want, somebody where it's like, oh yeah, he's just a really good rebounder. You don't want like, oh yeah, he can just score a lot because those guys are all taking all the shots too. So I like Bazemore just because he can kind of do a little bit of everything.
We're on the same page there for Bazemore. None is the guy that I'm interested in just because of his ownership, but I think that's mostly based on the Q tag. I don't get the sense I'm going to get to a ton of Malik Monk. I think he's just going to be too far down the line. And your guess is as good as mine where this usage ends up going. I hope that Russ just has like 21% usage and turns into the player that they need him to be. But I have a feeling that he's going to keep gunning and it's going to be a real problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I could.
Also, by the way, we didn't mention it. Antoine Murphy just mentioned it. I did have it in my notes. Avery Bradley signed with the Lakers yesterday and conceivably could play.
Yeah.
He was on the title team. Like it's not, I don't know what else to do with it, but he could play and be relevant, which is crazy because I assume he's the flat minimum.
Relevant for the Lakers, probably not relevant for DFS.
I mean, I don't want to say that like I think that it's likely, but on a team that like, would you really be surprised if Avery Bradley got ahead of anybody else other than those big three guys?
No, but what's he doing? Like, he doesn't score fantasy points.
I mean, is that a huge deal when you're 3K?
Kind of on this slate. There's a lot of cheap guys.
That's fair.
Like, there's a lot of guys under 4K.
That's fair. That's fair. Look, I don't want to advocate too hard for Avery Bradley here. This is not I don't think that he's going to be like the linchpin to an optimal lineup, but
yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I'm with you in the sense of it's a 2-game slate. If you have a reasonable number of minutes projected to any cheap guy at low ownership, they are quote unquote in play. But I don't think this is a slate where, even though it's only 2 games, I don't think this is a slate where like getting 13 points from a 3K guy gets it done, because there's so many guys in that bucket, that like 3 to 4K bucket, that it's pretty likely 1 or 2 of them just has a really good game.
All right, hit me with your favorite plays for today, and then we're going to get out of here, turn it over to the NFL show.
Giannis, Harden at the top. I like, as long as the ownership remains relatively low, I like Bielitsa at 3,400 in tournaments. I like Bazemore as a value option. Jordan Poole, I think, looks really good.
That'll do it, everybody. We are back. The NBA is here. Thank you for joining us. Go check out the Process Show, the Slate Starter Pod, the Contenders videos are out. We're going to have more coming up throughout the rest of the day for the deeper dive and live before lock. We are here. We've got basketball again. It's a good time. Hit the like button on your way out the door. We don't have nearly enough thumbs ups on this video. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.